The Boy Who Wasn't Right. Part 2. One like and subscribing to the channel means a lot to us. If you find the story good, please give us one like. The elders came at dawn. They brought ropes, torches, and a small clay pot filled with something that smelled bitter and sharp. Baba Yemi led them, his face stern and unreadable. My mother stood in the doorway, blocking their path. "You're not taking him," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "He's my son. I won't let you hurt him." Baba Yemi stepped forward, his eyes soft but serious. "This is not your son, Neka. You must let us do what needs to be done. If we don't, this thing will destroy everything. Your family, the village, everything." My mother started to cry, but she didn't argue anymore. She stepped aside, her shoulders slumped in defeat. My father put an arm around her, but he didn't say anything. His face was hard, like stone. The elders moved quickly. They found Amika, sitting under a tree at the edge of the forest, his black eyes staring into the distance. He didn't try to run. He didn't even look at them as they tied his hands and feet with thick ropes. He just sat there, limp and unresisting, like a doll. I watched from a distance, my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to scream at them to stop, to leave him alone. But another part of me, a deeper, darker part, knew they were right. This wasn't Amika. Not anymore. The elders dragged Amika into the forest, to a clearing where the trees were thin and the ground was bare. They tied him to a thick tree trunk and lit a fire around him. The flames crackled and hissed, casting flickering shadows on Emeka's face. But he didn't scream. He didn't cry. He just smiled. That same wide, unnatural smile that made my stomach turn. Baba Yemi began to chant, his voice low and rhythmic. The other elders joined in, their voices rising and falling like a song. They poured the bitter-smelling liquid from the clay pot into the fire, and the flames turned blue, then green, then black. The air grew heavy, like a storm was coming. The shadows around the clearing seemed to move, twisting and writhing like living things. I felt a coldness in my chest, like something was pressing down on me, squeezing the air from my lungs. Amika's smile widened. His black eyes gleamed in the firelight, and for a moment, I thought I saw something move behind them, something dark and shapeless, like smoke. Then he spoke. "Ada." His voice was soft, like a whisper, but it cut through the chanting like a knife. I froze, my heart pounding in my ears. "Ada, come closer." I didn't move. I couldn't. My legs felt like they were rooted to the ground. "Ada, don't leave me." The elders' chanting grew louder, more urgent. The flames roared higher, swallowing Emeka in a wall of fire. For a moment, I couldn't see him anymore. Then the fire died down, and he was gone. The clearing was silent. The flames flickered and died, leaving only a circle of ash and charred wood. The elders stopped chanting and stepped back, their faces pale and sweaty. "It's done," Baba Yemi said, his voice hoarse. "The spirit is gone." But I didn't feel relieved. I felt empty, like something had been ripped out of me. I stared at the ashes, waiting for something to happen, for Emeka to come back, for the fire to reignite, for the shadows to move again. But nothing did. The elders left, their voices low and somber. My parents followed, their faces blank with exhaustion. I stayed behind, staring at the ashes, until my father came back and gently led me away. That night, I dreamed of Amika again. He was standing in the forest, his skin charred and blackened, his eyes glowing like embers. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just watched me, his face twisted into that same unnatural smile. When I woke up, my arms were covered in fresh scratches. The days after the ritual were quiet. Too quiet. The village seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something to happen. But nothing did. The elders said the spirit was gone, and most people believed them. Life slowly returned to normal, or at least as normal as it could be without Emeka. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It started with small things. I'd hear footsteps outside our hut at night, soft and shuffling, like someone was walking barefoot in the dirt. I'd look out the window, but there was never anyone there. Just shadows, stretching long and dark under the moonlight. Then there were the dreams. Every night, I dreamed of Emeka. He was always in the forest, standing among the trees, his skin charred and blackened, his eyes glowing like embers. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just watched me, his face twisted into that same unnatural smile. And every morning, I'd wake up with fresh scratches on my arms. I tried to tell my parents, but they didn't want to hear it. "It's just your imagination," my mother said, her voice tired and hollow. "You're still grieving, that's all." But I knew it wasn't my imagination. Something was out there, and it was watching me. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I waited until my parents were asleep. Then I slipped out of the hut and into the forest. The moon was full, casting a pale light over the trees. The air was thick with the smell of earth and leaves, and the only sound was the rustle of the wind in the branches. I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe I just needed to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy, or maybe I wanted to see him again, to say goodbye, to ask him why he'd left me. I walked deeper into the forest, following a narrow path that led to the clearing where the elders had performed the ritual. The trees grew thicker, their branches twisting together like bony fingers. The shadows seemed to move as I passed, shifting and writhing like living things. When I reached the clearing, I stopped. The circle of ash was still there, black and powdery, like a stain on the earth. But something was different. The ground inside the circle was cracked, as if something had burst out from below. My heart pounded as I stepped closer. The air was colder here, and I could see my breath in the moonlight. I knelt down and touched the ash. It was cold too, unnaturally cold. Then I heard it, a soft, scraping sound, like something dragging itself across the ground. I froze, my hand still on the ash, and looked around. The clearing was empty, but the sound was getting louder. Closer. "Ada." The voice was soft, like a whisper, but it sent a chill down my spine. I knew that voice. It was Emeka's, but it wasn't. "Ada, you came back." I stood up and backed away, my eyes scanning the shadows. "Emeka," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Is that you?" There was no answer, just the sound of scraping, growing louder and louder. Then I saw it, a shadow moving at the edge of the clearing. It was tall and thin, with long spindly limbs that dragged along the ground. Its head was too big, its eyes glowing like embers in the dark. It wasn't Emeka, not anymore. I turned and ran, my heart pounding in my chest. The forest seemed to close in around me, the trees twisting and bending to block my path. I could hear the thing behind me, its footsteps heavy and uneven, its breath ragged and wet. "Ada, don't leave me." I didn't look back. I just ran, faster than I'd ever run before, until I burst out of the forest and into the village. I didn't stop until I reached our hut, where I collapsed on the ground, gasping for air. My parents found me there the next morning, curled up in the dirt, my arms covered in fresh scratches. They didn't ask what had happened. They just helped me inside and put me to bed. But I knew they could see it in my eyes. The fear, the certainty. The spirit wasn't gone. It was still out there, and it was coming for me.